Loco spotting in the 60s. Bunking Edge Hill Loco Shed. My mate Dave and I were a good combo. We were both train crazy. He knew everything and had all the latest information, while I supplied the offbeat humour and kept us going. We had a couple of expeditions to Merseyside in 1966. Back then the place still had a special magic, due to the Mersey sound and the musical talent pouring out of the place. But for us, that was also the soundtrack to the end of Steam. It was a bittersweet time. Steam's last days were approaching. There was another soundtrack though, especially in Edge Hill. The constant sound of shunting and buffers clanging on the vast gridiron marshalling yard. It was the same at Duckingfield at Dewsnap Sidings, where Dave came from. It was a noise you took for granted, in the background, until one day it stopped. So we knew that we had to catch the last days of Steam whatever way we could. Dave had his dad's tape recorder and his notebooks. I had my cheap box Brownie, then an even more useless camera. But we were on a mission, and Edge Hill was next on the list. We first landed there on a weekday. I didn't think there would be many locos about, but I was wrong. When I told a train spotting pal back at school that we were going to Edge Hill, he said it was the most boring shed he'd ever been to. Well, what was he on? There was so much activity. Not to mention locos slipping up and down the 1 in 27 ramp into the sheds. There was a lot of shouting and joking. Unlike most places, at Edge Hill, some of the men actually noticed us, and nodded or smiled. My schoolmate had said that it was full of hard men, but perhaps we just kept our heads down, out of trouble. Thinking about it now, it was a dangerous place for a couple of kids like us. But hey, that was the 60s. We'd got there on our bikes, a heck of a ride from Staley Bridge. But we thought nothing of stuff like that back then. I remember we ate all our sandwiches near Bold Colliery, watching austerity shunting. We lost our way a few times and ended up coming back towards the shed along Picton Road, where we went over the overbridge and saw the gridiron in the distance. The corporation buses seemed intent on killing us, but we survived. We made it to a whiffy tunnel that led to the depot from Tiverton Street. We felt a sense of exhilaration. Oh, there was so much to see, and if we could just avoid the shed foreman's gaze, we'd be in. Trouble was, his office faced the tunnel. Standing there wondering what to do, we got lucky. Some loco men passed us, and on an impulse, I followed them, trying to be inconspicuous. It worked. We were in. There were 4 or 5 filthy 8Fs on shed, being worked on by fitters. An engineman told me that these 8s were called consoles for some reason. The fitters were looking very busy. Further into the sheds there was a proper engineering facility known as the camp, but we didn't dare go in that deep. One 9F appeared to be having a valve examination, out of doors. The base of the smoke deflectors had been removed, making them look like German bat wings fitted to the A3s. The Class 5s here were a welcome sight, as we didn't see many of them in our neck of the woods. I remember looking around me and saying to Dave that all this steam action was going on, while we were trapped in Colditz, as we used to call our school. Of course, some of the more exotic locos had gone from Edge Hill. The Princesses and the Duchesses, the Baby Scots, and the XLNW Super Ds that were such a feature of Edge Hill. Fitters hated them because they were so awkward to work on. I thought they had a kind of steampunk charm, if I'd known what that meant back then. The sweet little ginties too had almost all gone. The men called them humpies, I guess because they worked the hump yard on the gridiron. Their replacements, the Class 08 diesel shunters, are of course called gronks. I wonder where that name comes from. I was hoping to see a wee L&Y pug, but I was told that they'd been at Bank Hall for shunting the docks, and anyway, they were all razor blades now. So much had been lost. There was a fascinating coal hopper at the depot. It was built by the LNWR in 1915, with an ash handling facility almost right next to it. We watched the specially designed bottom door wagons being pulled up a steep ramp by capstan to be tipped into one of 3 40-ton bunkers. Some joker told us that it was smokeless coal, although Dave thought that might be right, for working the Waterloo and Wapping tunnels. We stood for a while watching the locos coaling, and got rather blackened by coal dust. Anyway, Dave was right. Turns out that there were 3 grades of coal in the hoppers, one of them being smokeless. From Bedwas Deep Colliery in South Wales. Blind coal, they called it. There'd been a shed at Edge Hill since 1830, at the very dawn of railway time, when the Liverpool and Manchester Railway built an engine shed near to Chatsworth Cutting. But the place we knew was built in 1864 by the London and North Western Railway, still rather a long time ago. It was expanded in 1902 to accommodate 20 tracks. Imagine the sight of all those old LNWR locos, like this Beams 084T, built for shunting the gridiron. Incredibly, they lasted almost into the 50s. According to Ken Pearce in his superb book, Shedside on Merseyside, these locos were not popular with the fitters, as their tanks worked loose and leaked, soaking the sandboxes. There were quite a few coal tanks in the 40s and 50s as well, but we were too late to see those. There is one preserved at Ingrove on the Keighley and Worth Valley Railway. Here's a shot of it at Dinting in the 70s, where I had the honour of sanding down some of the flaking paintwork. Anyway, we liked Edge Hill, and it wasn't just the shed that was interesting. On the other side of the gridiron, you could see Crawford's biscuit factory, and a plume of steam often betrayed their little fireless loco pottering about in the exchange sidings. It was Andrew Barclay 1562 of 1917. That gridiron marshalling yard, though. The first marshalling yard in the world. 60 miles worth of sidings, handling over 2,000 wagons of freight a day in its pomp. An 8F was shunting when we were there, itself a sign of the rundown of things, as a few years earlier there would have been several genties snuffling about. On this OS map circa 1946, we can see the extent of the gridiron and the cat's cradle of lines surrounding the shed. The different levels and inclines are very tricky to understand. It's even more confusing today, as time and development have added to the palimpsest. Reminders can surface though, such as this view of the gridiron bridges at Pighew Lane. Of course, along from there was the Meccano factory on Binns Road. Both Dave and I had Hornby 00 layouts at home. I had a Duchess and an N2 tank on a small oval of track. It was about the only thing Dave and I differed about, because he was a Western region devotee. No accounting for taste. The detail on model railway engines and rolling stock today would have blown our minds back then. I guess we just imagined the rivets and the handrails. My layout was rudimentary, but I loved it. My mum did the back scenes, on one of her rare, good-humoured days. Today, the gridiron has gone, replaced by a business park, and the site of the shed is an academy. This is what it looks like today. Tiverton Street, where we walked towards the shed, is still there, but where we held our breath through the subway has gone. Actually an improvement. The old goods yard to the west of the depot is now Alstham's Train Care Facility, or Works, to call a spade a spade. Amusingly, there's a line of modern houses slap bang where the old LNWR coaling stage was. I wonder if they're woken in the night by the eerie rumbling of spectral coal wagons. Before leaving the shed environs, here are some glimpses of the everyday atmosphere of Edge Hill. Meet 47406, the shed pilot. A ginty, inscribed with the chalk name, King of Edge Hill. The name might well be a witty allusion to Joseph Williamson, of Edge Hill Tunnels fame. This view of an unidentified Britannia shows to good effect the gridiron in the background. With the different levels and girder sections, it looks like an overambitious model railway. And there's the Crawford's biscuit factory in the background. Here's a grubby Royal Scot, 46131, the Royal Warwickshire Regiment. A Crewe North loco, but seen resting here at Edge Hill in 1960. And a Caprotti fitted Class 5, 44743, a Speke Junction loco not far from home at Edge Hill. I wish we'd seen this Stanier Mogul. Something of a rarity, as there were only 40 built. It was allocated to Edge Hill, where it's seen here, but only in 1942 and again in 48. It ended up at Heaton Mersey in 1965. There were 2 turntables near the coaling plant. One was a 50-footer. Dave and I spent some time here, as there was a queue of locos waiting to turn. Far from being boring, Edge Hill had atmosphere and interest in spades. But there was so much to see back in the 60s, if you liked old industrial stuff. We paused at a scrapyard on the way back as Dave had spotted an old steam traction engine rusting away. We were soon chased off by the classic scrapyard dog. It didn't seem to understand that our interest in the loco was purely academic. I wonder what happened to that engine. If you've got this far, thanks so much for watching the video. And if you've enjoyed it, please leave a like. And subscribe if you haven't done already. And I'll be back soon with another video.